Hello, everyone. We are back at the Anaheim Convention Center, the fountains, the whole setup here, once again to talk WonderCon, this time obviously 2024. It's been a year since last time I've been here. These years always fly by. It's something, though, as we were here a year ago, we talked about expecting a strange year at WonderCon as things were kind of climbing back from the pandemic. And then we got an even weirder summer as we went into a Comic-Con unlike any we had seen before, with changes in the business, the industry, and of course the strikes being most part of all of that. And so as we're back here going to talk WonderCon this year, we're super excited about it. We poured through the panels. We have a podcast dedicated to talking about those and all sorts of other stuff related to WonderCon if you want to check that out. But as excited as we are, we do have to kind of start things off and just say it is going to be a different year once again. It's like we've been saying this since the pandemic. Once again, we know the streaming world is messy. Hollywood, just big business in general, is really a mess. And so WonderCon, Comic-Con International, San Diego Comic-Con, all rely on those relationships. And so we're not going to see a DC return to the floor. In fact, this year, we're going to see Bandai and Funko leave the WonderCon floor. But it doesn't mean there aren't a lot of great replacements outside of that. And we're going to detail some of those things. But it is important just to kind of adjust expectations as we come through here. We have seen just generally in the convention world, a lot of shows that are kind of the general pop culture realm really struggle in a lot of different ways with the shows and kind of selling tickets and all those things. It's just kind of a different world right now. The anime cons and the really super specific shows are really popping off at the moment here. But again, so many things that are really cool about this. And it took us a little bit deeper dive. I mean, I really did take like a full hour to kind of pour through the schedule and look at every single thing. And so we're not going to tie into all of those here. We'll talk about a few of them. But I just want to really encourage you to come on out if you are considering hitting WonderCon, if you're still on the fence about it, because there is so many cool things. And we're going to share all of that in here. At the end of the day, over 820 exhibitors taking over this giant convention center space. It will be a little different on the floor. There's no arena, but there's going to be some fun surprises with that. So that said, let's go ahead and start getting into the meat of what we're expecting from WonderCon 2024. All right, we've jumped out by Catella real quick just to talk about parking real quickly here. Now, parking over at Disney has gone up another $5 since this time last year. So if you have a pass that includes parking, that's great. Even with the discount, that might still work. We know people historically have liked to walk over for Anaheim Convention Center conventions a lot of times. That said, these days, right now, as of the recording, Anaheim Convention Center is promising $20 parking at the convention center. This is one spot where you can pull in, also around the back side of the convention center there, over near the drop-off area. Of course, follow all the signage and where they're kind of guiding you. But that said, it is something to think about. Another thing, though, to think about is how busy these streets can get. Remember that this show, it's not just about the convention. The convention is really a small part of everything, because every day you have Disneyland. And so Disneyland every day is attracting big crowds. So as we talk about Saturday, we know these streets are going to be pretty crowded as you get into that 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m., all that. And so really, I would say if you're coming on the later side, driving in, I would just try to get anywhere I could where you're not stuck in super long lines. Ideally, though, getting to the convention center on the earlier side, if you're able to get there, 3-4 hours before the convention, it should be a lot smoother to find some parking, particularly on that Saturday, but even Sunday might really help a lot. So again, $35 at Toy Story down the way there, $20 at the convention center here. And then of course the hotels will have their own pricing, which can get really pricey. We find a lot of times when there's bigger events, they'll go to like $40, $50, or they'll just shut down parking altogether. That's anything outside of hotel guests. So be careful on that one. All right, we've made our way down here by Hall D, which is where badge pickup is going to take place. If you didn't have your badge shipped to you, that's where you're going to be heading. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But before that, coming out here, very important to note to avoid any like ATM fees and also making sure you have a card on you. The convention center is cashless. So if you're going to go to any of the concession stands, if you're going to get coffee, muffin, any of that type of stuff, anything inside those doors, they are going to require cards. So make sure to have a card for that. Also, though, vendors oftentimes prefer cash. Sometimes they'll make you a better deal, knock off the tax, things like that. So we really suggest having both and avoiding any ATM fees and dealing with that. Now, as of this recording, tickets are still available for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They can combine those into a 3-day ticket, although at this time, or I should say the early bird pricing has ended. That ended January 10th. So you're not going to get a price break on the 3 days, but you still can buy the 3 again as of us recording this. Now, badge pickup. So if you miss the window to have your badge shipped to you, that means you'll be picking it up here again down in Hall D over here. That begins at noon on Thursday, from 12 to 7 on Thursday. You can come in and pick any of the badges up that you need to, whatever the day is coming. That's going to continue then 10 to 7 on Friday, 8:30 to 7 on Saturday, and 8:30 to 5 on Sunday. Now, they don't want you picking up, for example, the Sunday badge on Friday. You're just picking up that one day. So once we get to the actual start of the show on Friday, they ask that people can pick up the following day, but after 3 p.m. So for example, if you purchased a Saturday and Sunday, you can pick them both up after 3 p.m., but not before that on the Friday of the show. Now, costumes, prop check, all of that is the same as last year where they have their check-in areas. There's 4 locations. We've got the Grand Plaza where they're going to be doing those cosplay and weapon checks. We've got the Hall D, outside Hall D over in this area, near registration in Lobby B, and then in the lobby in the new North building. Not so new anymore, but across the way, and just kind of using that as an example of a spot to pick up. So 4 different locations to do that. Remember, there's no RFID again at WonderCon, so if you lose your badge, you have to pay a replacement fee, so be careful with that. So no tap in, no tap out. We would imagine it'll be back at San Diego Comic-Con again, but not a part of this year's WonderCon. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the floor then and just exclusives and those types of things. So there is no exclusive portal this time around. We know that's a relief to a lot of people. Other people may be a little sad by it because obviously we don't have an exclusive portal because you don't have a company like Funko there with that really sought after exclusive. It's also because you don't have any studios really leading a charge with some big signing like in the old days where you'd have CW with the Arrowverse type shows or Shazam or things like that. So there will be no exclusive portal to worry about. That's it. I'm sure it'll be there for San Diego. So if you like the portal, I'm sure you'll get a chance to do that this year if you're going to be going to Comic-Con. While Funko won't be on the floor, Bandai, as I said, some of those bigger booths that we have seen over the last few years, and in some cases several years. I mean, I'll be honest, I still really miss the DC booth. Like, I love, that's to me part of like core memories when it comes to WonderCon. But that being said, there's going to be some great booths still being offered there. IDW, I'm excited that they're returning back to the floor there. Super 7, Toddland, $7 a pop, BB Create, Fig Pen. So many great booths are going to be there too. Some will have exclusives, some will not. As we always encourage, follow along with our friends at the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog. They cover WonderCon as well, as I'm sure you're familiar with if you're watching this. They do a really great job of documenting everybody that has exclusives, special drops, things of that nature. We know just today they shared that there's a few artists in Artist Alley that are going to be sharing kind of a stamp rally type things where people will get their cards stamped and get different prizes and things like that. So they'll have more and more fun things there. Keep an eye on $7 a pop. They were a really great force at San Diego Comic-Con last year. Some really great signings, even despite the situation with the strikes and all of that. They were able to get a lot of voice talent in that was allowed to be at the con. Same thing here. They've got some signings coming their way. They're really going to spread out. Without Funko there, they're in that same part of the floor there, and they're going to be able to spread out and do even more there. We love hitting the gold and silver pavilion, all the comics. I mean, I'll be honest, it's like my favorite part of the floor is just going through those bins. So many great comic vendors come to the show. And then, of course, Artist Alley is just stacked. We already talked about the stamps that are going on over there. But just beyond that, you've got such a great range of types of talent there. All sorts of different influences, mediums, all of that on display. So make sure to take your time with that. One of the nice things about a floor that's going to have a little bit less competition is it just makes it easier to wander the floor. I know some of my favorite cons, sometimes as much as I love the excitement of battling things out at a place like San Diego Comic-Con or D23 Expo, Star Wars Celebration, I also love shows where you can kind of just chill out and wander the floor and take your time with things and not feel like you have to rush somewhere all the time. And I think that's going to be a lot of the experience this year for attendees at WonderCon, is being able to enjoy the floor without maybe having to fight so hard to get some of those. But you're still going to have cool stuff out there to check out. So with that said, now let's move over towards the North Building and talk a little bit about some of the talent coming to the panel rooms and just what's going on in that scene overall of programming. All right, we've made our way to the opposite end of the convention center here, going towards Catella. Behind us is the North Building. We've got Hall A here. The arena is down there behind it. So the arena, as I said at the top of the show, is not part of in play this year. There's not going to be any panels in the arena. Although there is a Hollywood presence, it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that they didn't find probably enough there to justify using the full arena. But regardless of the reasons, we're going to talk a little bit about some of these rooms, some things going on there. First up to note, as always with WonderCon panels, as well as San Diego Comic-Con panels, they do not clear the room, so make sure to know that in advance. There's no clearing of the room, so sometimes you might want to get there a little bit early to stake a spot and make sure you're in a good spot for your panel, especially if being closer to the stage might be a big deal to you. Now, the two big rooms this time are going to be North 200. So you've got A and B. So 200 at North 200A, North 200B. So the North 200s are going to be home to a few different panels that are really of interest, I think. I know as we did a deep dive on our panel schedule, in fact, I've got the notes still here. I've got several pages of notes written pretty small there that we go over on the podcast, just talking about things of interest. For me, being more of a floor person, a lot of times easy to let the panels go. I found that there's a ton of panels that I'm really interested in. In fact, almost all of Saturday, I feel like I want to be in a panel room. Even though I know I probably don't have that type of resolve, I'm going to get attracted to the floor and break away at some point. There's a lot of great stuff there. So in the North 200s, I mean, Paramount Plus is bringing out Star Trek. You've got the Subspace Rhapsody sing-along there. You've got them bringing Discovery, the final season premiere episode with executive producers there as well. There's some great talent there. You've got Collider, Steve Weintraub bringing the directors on directing. You've got Fall Guy representation, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Abigail. I know those are three movies I'm very interested in, and maybe getting a little bit of footage there is very attractive. The Strangers Chapter 1, Chucky Season 3, Resident Alien, Ghost showing an episode there. A lot of really fun things in those panel rooms. So I'd keep an eye on them. I think they're going to be pretty busy with a lot of fun things going on there. I think there'll be a lot of room turnover. But that said, as we talk about room turnover, that is a better topic for our friends over at the unofficial Comic-Con blog, San Diego SDCC blog. They have a podcast. It was recorded. So as we're recording this, I'm guessing this video is going to come out a little bit after it, so you can find it in their archives there, wherever you find podcasts, and listen in on them as they break down what they think will be the room flow there. But a lot of good stuff there. Now, miscellaneous panels throughout the convention center. Nacelle is going to be here. The Legal Geeks are doing a great one on Godzilla, and they've got another one on Ghostbusters for some late night Friday night and late night Saturday night program. Dark Horse has a few panels here. They've got some great representation. A lot of toy stuff going on. McFarlane Toys with Todd McFarlane himself talking DC and other things there. Demon Slayer. You've got Hasbro with a panel here. Sideshow talking about their 30 years of history in toys. On the comic side, Steve Englehart, absolute legend. Ashley Eckstein, Ashley Eckstein, not in the comic side, but another more contemporary legend there for a lot of people. Gail Simone, Bill Sienkiewicz, Marv Wolfman, David Mack, all sorts of great talent there. So really, I would encourage, I always try to look at panel schedules closely, but for some reason this time I was able to kind of find that hour and dig into it and found a lot of great stuff there. And I think you'll find some really fun treats there to give you good breaks from the floor. And again, I don't think they're going to be as crazy as a lot of times we have at these different conventions, particularly San Diego and sometimes WonderCon, where you do have big crowding or things like that. So hopefully it'll lend to just a more chill convention all the way around and being able to kind of flow from the floor to the panel rooms, or at least that's what I'm hoping. We'll see. Obviously, we'll be on the ground covering all these things and sharing our experiences with that. So with that said, now let's talk a little bit about the surrounding hotels, some of the things going on in downtown Disney, CVS for our, drugstore runs, things like that. All right, we've made our way to this end of the campus. We've got Catella behind us. That's Disneyland, WCA all behind us there. Let's talk about the Disneyland Resort. It can be a great tool in this whole convention weekend here, because since the pandemic, a lot of the food offerings in these hotel areas, and we'll talk about the Marriott and the Hilton in a second, have really gone away or had significantly reduced hours. We've been shocked, even with something like Star Wars Celebration, D23 Expo. I mean, all of these shows have really just not quite had the same services from the Marriott and the Hilton as they did in the pre-pandemic era. So Disneyland, downtown Disney, it's free to get in there. You do have to go through security, so be careful, especially if you have some cosplay weapons or things like that. They can be pretty strict with those things, so make sure to look at the website and see all of their rules and regulations to make sure you're okay. That said, if you do go over there, though, or even thinking of going to Disneyland, I suggest getting the app. It's obviously free to download that on your phone. You can check out what things look like over there, the shopping, the food, and then, of course, making reservations might be a nice thing at the end of one of these days if you don't stay into the later part for some of those late-night panels. Down Catella, as we make our way towards Harbor and all of that, you do have a CVS down there. You have a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf there. Oftentimes, the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf have much shorter lines than the Starbucks over here in the Marriott and the Hilton, although it is much more of a walk. But we do know some people just choose to kind of make that walk and go off kind of campus to do that. CVS was a great option there with all sorts of, obviously, little quick grab-and-go type things and all of that. Now let's talk about Marriott and Hilton. Hilton has the least of the food offerings. That food court they had used to be, for us at least, kind of a constant stop. We particularly loved Submarina, but that went away. There's really just not a ton of activity there, and they have really reduced hours as well. So doesn't mean it might not be a place to still check, but we just want you to kind of be aware of that. And of course, the Starbucks in there always gets quite busy, but it is a good option. It can be very convenient, especially if you're staying at the Hilton. The Marriott, a little bit more with the pizza place they have in there. Their Starbucks also has different sandwiches and stuff, but also not a lot of options there too. So just in general, we found from conventions here in the last couple of years that it's more likely to make a little bit of a walk sometimes for our food, or we just break down and buy things on the convention center floor. Of course, if the food trucks are back, as of of this recording, that hasn't been anything announced or anything, but we know a lot of times people are big fans of food trucks. That could be another option there as well. Sometimes the food trucks even make their way over into this area here, so you might want to keep an eye on this. We will be out here as of Thursday covering everything, so if we see that there's spots kind of set up for food trucks, things like that, we'll be sharing that as early as Thursday afternoon. We'll try to share things out at the convention. If you're on social, you can hit us up there. We know a lot of people have left Twitter/X. That said, it's still, we find the place for convention talk. And although we're on X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, it just goes on and on. We do find that Twitter/X is still the place to be there. So we'd suggest following along there. Hashtag WCA24 or hashtag WonderCon. Both should work pretty well there to probably get a lot of information. We just were at Gallifrey 1, much smaller convention, only about 4,000, under 4,000, and it was a pretty powerful hashtag and a lot of information shared there. So you may want to make a return just for the weekend. It may be just a San Diego and WonderCon type of thing for some of you, but it is a place where I know we'll be able to share a lot of information. If you find cool things that you want to share, hit us up there and we can easily share it, repost it, and all the stuff there. As we said at the outset and many times throughout the podcast, definitely follow along with our friends at sdccblog.com. That's the unofficial San Diego Comic-Con blog. They are going to have all sorts of coverage, pre, during, post, an excellent stop, obviously not just for San Diego, but WonderCon as well. And then, as I said, we did a podcast. I think it's the deepest dive we've ever done on WonderCon actually this year. So it's already up as of this recording. It's called Previewing WonderCon 2024. You can find it wherever you find podcasts, Parks and Cons, Android, iPhone, all of that good stuff. So wrapping up here from the Anaheim Convention Center. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.